Hello, everyone. My name is Kabir Singh. I am a teaching artist at USC Pacific Asia Museum, and today I'll be guiding you through some meditation techniques that you can practice at home or anywhere you are. I am an arts educator, writer, and meditator. I've been teaching in museums for over a decade and practicing meditation in one form or another for almost all my life. My mother is a meditation teacher, and she introduced me to meditation at a very young age. Today, we'll be doing something that combines both art and meditation, and I'll be telling you about that in just a moment. I've designed today's session to match the needs of both beginners and people who have been practicing meditation a very long time. So first, I want to define what I mean when I say meditation or also mindfulness. And I like to use the way that the Vietnamese Zen Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh defines mindfulness. He says that mindfulness is keeping one's consciousness alive to the present reality. So that's what we'll be doing today, practicing today, paying attention to the present reality, both inwardly and outwardly. We will first start off just by grounding ourselves, and we'll begin to focus on paying attention to our breathing. We will then, I'll share a technique for you to be able to count your breathing. And that's a tool that many people find helpful to help them focus on the present reality. Focus on your breathing without having your mind wandering off into other places. But one thing that I want to say is that it is completely natural for your mind to wander off in other places. And part of the practice is just noticing that, noticing when that's happening, and then trying to bring your mind back. So please don't worry if you find yourself drifting off at any point throughout today. I'll then share some techniques for a walking meditation. Meditation doesn't just have to be sitting. And then I'll end today's session with some instructions for what I like to call a looking meditation. So that's what brings art into the meditation practice and combines meditation, the practice of keeping one's consciousness alive to the present reality, with looking at artwork. So we'll tell you more about that in a little bit. I'm going to be sounding a meditation bell to mark the beginning and end of each meditation that we do. I use a singing bowl as my bell, but you could use anything that you have at home. If you have just a gentle alarm on your phone and you want to set a timer for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or longer, that's something you can do too. So don't feel like this is a tool that you have to have. But this will be the sound that you'll hear as I'm marking both the beginning and end of different practices we have. Just listen out for that sound. And then one more thing I'll share is that throughout our session today, I'll have images from USC Pacific Asia Museum's collection on the screen for you to focus on if you would like to, or you can close your eyes. And really encourage you in this practice today to do whatever feels the most comfortable to you. Close your eyes if you feel the most comfortable closing your eyes. Focus on images on the screen if that's more comfortable. Follow what feels good. So the first step is to find a comfortable place to be either seated or standing as you are practicing today. So as you'll see, the first image that we have on the screen is this beautiful, one of my favorite images in Pacific Asia Museum's collection, this Korean Buddha from the 16th century Joseon dynasty. And as you see here in the image, this Buddha, Shakyamuni, or historical Buddha here, is seated in a way that is, it's a little bit hard to see what he's doing with his feet, but most likely a full lotus or half lotus position. And both of those positions are often the positions that one thinks of when one thinks of meditation, having either a foot or both feet crossed over one's thighs as one sitting down on the floor. And that's something that if you feel comfortable doing, please go ahead and do that. If you're going to sit on the floor, I definitely recommend having a cushion that will comfortably support you, support your body as you're going to be on the floor. But that's merely an option. And in fact, when I'm practicing meditation, I will often be sitting or standing or in other positions. So sitting in a chair. So if you're sitting in a chair right now, that's totally fine. If you're standing, that's fine. Do what feels most comfortable to you. You don't need to be in the same position that this Buddha is in. So just begin to notice how you are standing or sitting. So if you are sitting in a chair or on the floor, start to sit with your back up straight as it can be. Bring your shoulders down though. Make sure that you're not holding any tension in your shoulders. As we straighten our backs, it's easy for us to kind of stand at attention. But the goal here is just really to eliminate the tension, but have our backs just be supporting us as we're sitting or standing wherever you are. If you're sitting on the floor, just notice the different places where your body is coming in contact into the floor, how that feels. If you are sitting in a chair, try to sit with your feet on the ground if they will touch, just comfortably. If you're standing, try to stand with your feet at about hip width. So rather than having your feet directly touching each other, if you stretch them out and have them coming down from where your hips are, that'll give you more support as you're standing. So we're now in all of our positions. You can think about also with your hands, how you would like to have your hands, if you'd like to have them at your sides or in clasped on your lap. And that's in part somewhat in the way that you see the image of the Buddha. I'll point with my arrow. The Buddha's left hand here is sort of up and open, and you could clasp both of your hands together if you'd like, in a clasp position in your lap if you'd like to. So then, now that you are in a comfortable position, you've grounded yourself, just begin to notice your breathing. Notice how you are breathing right now. If you've been breathing through your mouth, make a shift to breathing through your nose, unless of course, you have a cold, and it's very hard to breathe through your nose if you have a cold, so continue breathing through your mouth if you need to. Just begin to notice how long your inhales are taking and how long your exhales are taking without trying to change them at this point. Just notice how long they are. Next, I'll encourage you to think about your breathing. Think about, now that you've noticed the natural length of your inhale and your exhale. And I'll encourage you to just think about elongating the inhale and the exhale. So you want to do that to a comfortable place. So don't push yourself to to make your inhales too long or exhales too long if they don't feel comfortable. And also make a slow transition to start to have longer inhales and longer exhales. But just take about several deep breaths in and out and elongate your inhale and exhales until they get into a comfortably long place. So now with that, I'm going to sound a bell, and that will mark the beginning of time for this next, just right now, focusing on your breath with your elongated inhales and exhales, continuing to do that without my voice talking. So I'll sound a bell at the beginning and at the end to mark about 1 minute that we'll take to do that. Right, wonderful. So now just pausing, and from that 1 minute of elongated breathing, focusing on your breathing, and I'd love to just encourage you now to notice how you're feeling now. Notice how you're feeling as compared to when you first sat down versus now. So, and that's something that we'll be doing in this keeping one's consciousness alive to the present reality, also stopping to reflect after our timed meditations on how it's going, on how we feel now. And another way that you can do that, and I'll share some prompts at the end perhaps, is through writing. If you have time to write or journal and reflect on how you're feeling now, that can be a great way to reflect and think about how you can bring this feeling of calm that you are hopefully feeling right now to any part of your day. So one thing that I wanted to say again, to repeat, is just make sure that you are kind to yourself. If you notice yourself having your mind start to wander as you are practicing meditation at any point today, that's totally natural and normal, and to be expected. So just notice that that's happening, and try to bring yourself back. But please don't be worried or think that you are doing it wrong. That's something that it's really part of the practice, part of being human, and part of the fact that it is practice. You aren't, the goal isn't necessarily to get it right every time, but just to become more comfortable with this process, and to become more comfortable with the idea of being able to pay attention to the present reality. So next, I'm going to introduce a new technique into what we will do today with the breathing. And that is as you are breathing. So in a moment, I'll sound the bell again, and this time I'm going to give us 3 minutes to be closely focusing on your breathing. I'll encourage you now, if it feels comfortable, to begin counting your breaths. And so on your first inhale, you will count 1. On your next exhale, you'll count 2. You'll inhale again 3. Exhale 4. Inhale 5. Exhale 6. All of the way up to 10, with odd numbers being your inhales and even numbers being your exhales. And once you reach the number 10, then I'll encourage you to start off with the number 1 again. So you are counting your inhales and your exhales. Inhales odd, exhales even, all the way up to 10, and then starting again at 1. It will be totally natural for you to find yourself somewhere in the teens, 18 perhaps, even in the 20s. I've definitely done that. And as you do, just notice that that's happening, and then start off again with 1 on your next inhale. So I'm going to give us 3 minutes to be calmly and quietly counting our breaths all the way up to 10, and again starting off with 1, with this time a different view of this Joseon Dynasty Korean Buddha. Thank you. So, this is another great time to check in and notice how you're feeling right now and how that went. How was it to be counting your breathing? Did you find it easy or challenging? What parts did you find easy or challenging? For some people, the counting of the breath can be a useful tool to be able to help keep one's mind on the breathing and help the counting, the sort of the rote, the one, two, three, etc. Helps. It gives you something to do and some place for your mind to focus on to help you from having your mind wander off from other things. That's it's so natural for us to start to thinking about what you have to do next. What are things on your to-do list? What are other things that are coming up for you? And a goal is to be quieting our minds right now and just focusing on um, what's either in front of you or what's inside you, in this case, your breath. So that paying attention to the breathing and focusing, kind of counting can help. Other people, however, find it distracting and find that the counting to be really difficult to keep up with. So that's something that I encourage you to um, notice and know. If you find it a helpful tool, that's wonderful, and to use that perhaps in other things that we do today. But if you find it to be distracting and not helpful for you, don't do it. Don't worry about that. So the screen has transitioned now to an image of Amitabha Buddha, or Amida. This is from the Kamakura period in Japan, um, which took place from 1185 to 1333. And this is another one of my favorite sculptures in USC Pacific Asia Museum's collection. It is one of the things that I notice when I am with it in the galleries is the way that the lattice work around the sides casts shadows um, onto the ground, and just the way that it's shown is different to um, wherever it's being shown and ephemeral. But in this photograph of it, it's you can see there is Amitabha Buddha. So um, different Buddha from the historic Buddha, and I won't go into too many details about the differences, but the historic Buddha, whom we were just looking at, Buddha Shakyamuni, is the person Siddhartha Gautama, whom Buddhists believe to have lived roughly 2,500 years ago, and is said to have attained enlightenment or gained wisdom from many hours of sitting under a ficus tree. Now, in in many different traditions of Buddhism, and other traditions of practice, meditation needn't be limited to sitting meditation. And that's one of the reasons why I love to look at and show this image of the Buddha. You'll see that here, Amida Buddha, so Amitabha, different Buddha from the historic Buddha, but you'll see that he's standing and standing on these lotus blossoms here. And so meditation is something that can take place through in many different ways. And in Zen Buddhism in particular, there is a practice of walking meditation. And so walking meditation, or kinhin, as it's called in Japanese, and it's can be practiced in um, alternating from when you are practicing sitting meditation or zazen, as it is in Japanese Buddhism and Japanese Zen practice. Um, but you can also practice it on your own in its own right. So I have a couple of images from the museum's collection of some gardens to put you in the mood for thinking about walking around a garden if if you don't have one at home that you can walk through. And you can practice walking meditation in a garden, outside, inside, anywhere. This is a time where you definitely, if you're going to be moving your body, you don't want to have your eyes closed. You want to make sure that you don't bump into anything. But you'll essentially follow for walking meditation the same kind of practice that you practiced for your sitting and breathing meditation, or standing and breathing meditation, however you practiced it. You will pay attention not only to your breathing and to your surroundings, but to your steps. So, and pay attention to how it feels in your body. So, encourage you to walk slowly. So, have um, your feet kind of pay attention to each step you are making with your feet, how it feels to lift your foot and leg up off the ground, and how it feels to place your feet back on the ground. Slowly, slowly, much slower than you might normally walk, paying attention to each of your footsteps and how your body moves as you are moving through your space. So that's something that I'll encourage you to practice right now, um, at home or wherever you are, or also give you the opportunity if you wanted to practice another round of breathing meditation now, however you'd like. So if you have the space and would like to walk around your space right now, please do so, just paying attention to each footstep. If you prefer to stay seated or standing or however you are, and just focus on the breathing, that's great. If you'd like to count the breath as we did in our last meditation, go ahead and practice that too. And this time I'm going to give us about 5 minutes of time to be either walking or breathing and sitting. Make sure you breathe no matter what. And a chance to just reflect on where you are. So I'll sound the bell to mark the beginning. Well, thank you so much. So, again, we'll check in with ourselves now. How did that go? However, you chose to use that time, whether you were taking steps slowly, mindfully, wherever you were, or just choosing to focus on your breathing again. Notice now how that went. And it may be going differently than it was when we first started. That's something that you'll just notice every time that you sit down to meditate or practice. It will be different. It's not always going to be exactly the same. So, a couple of things I want to leave you with. And first, I wanted to mention about the option of writing and even writing meditation. And when I practice this writing meditation, it's often inspired by the writer and meditator Natalie Goldberg, who wrote many books over the years. And she has prompts for really just free form writing for set amounts of time. And so the meditation practice is to sit and write for say 10 minutes or longer. um, just write whatever is coming to mind, whatever you are putting to paper. And she recommends, and I recommend, if you have a notebook and using a notebook and pen and paper to write. And that can be just about anything if you're wanting to explore creative writing, or it can be a very specific reflective writing. So you might, after your time practicing a couple different meditations techniques, you might take some time, 5 minutes or 10 minutes, um, after taking part in this, to reflect on what this experience was like and what you might like to repeat in the future and what you might like to change. Um, I also find it's great to combine sitting meditation or other kinds of meditation with writing meditation. So, say, do 10 minutes of sitting meditation followed by 10 minutes of Natalie Goldberg style of writing meditation. That's just a very open, write anything that you want to write, but keep writing. So that's another option of something that you might explore if you're going to, combine the arts with meditation. So then, lastly, I want to share with you my prompt for what I like to call looking meditation. And this is something that I try to do when I go to museums. Um, I don't always have the time to mindfully do this at museums or in other places where I'm exploring art. But this is something that you can do yourself too from home or any place. Is find an artwork if you have an actual artwork um, with you someplace, and and um, doesn't necessarily have to be. Um, we don't all in our homes own um, artworks that might find themselves in museums, but we might own other artworks that are precious to us, and perhaps by people who are precious to us. And so find, if you have a live artwork, an artwork in your home or near you that you can spend some time looking at, that's wonderful. If you're able to practice this the next time that you go someplace where there's art, that's great. But also, if you have books with artworks in them, you can find a reproduction of a work. You can find something on your screen too, like this. This is Another one of my really favorite artworks in USC Pacific Asian Museum's collection. This is an octopus. It's an octopus netsuke. So it is um, you may, depending on the size of your screen, you may be seeing this even larger than it actually is. It is 2 inches tall and an inch and a quarter wide, and an inch and a half deep. It's a netsuke, which means it's a counterweight in Japanese traditional clothing. When folks would wear kimono, um, they use folks would use netsuke as a counterbalance to balance other objects in order to carry their personal belongings, since there's no pockets in a kimono. So, and these netsuke are often designed really beautifully with different animals or different characters. And this has just always been my favorite, the octopus. That's part of the collection. It's from the 20th century, from Japan. And so this is an example of an artwork that you can look at. You can look at it on your screen. You can look at, find artworks in the flesh, or artworks in a book. But what I encourage folks to do is to spend 10 minutes with one artwork. And so practicing the same techniques that we practiced, it's essentially the same thing of keeping one's consciousness alive to the present reality, as Thich Nhat Hanh has said. That you are, instead of paying attention to your focusing on your breathing, counting your breathing, or focusing on the steps that you're taking in your surroundings for a walking meditation, with this looking meditation, as I like to call it, you are focusing your attention on externally, on the artwork that's in front of you. And with those 10 minutes, really focus, look closely. You'll want to find a work with a lot of details, with perhaps something to surprise you, to keep you wanting to look and finding more, for up to 10 minutes. If you're in a gallery or you're looking at a book, what I really recommend is spending as much time as possible first just really looking at the artwork without reading anything extra about it. It's so often, when people go to museums, when adults go to museums, certainly when I go to museums too, I am guilty of this. It's often our tendency to read the wall labels first, to want to know information about what something is before we just dive in and look. And that's great. It's helpful to have information that helps you start to make meaning from it. But there's so much that's just able for our eyes to look at. And so I like to encourage people to spend some time looking first before you look at a label or read anything more about it. So I would recommend really looking first. If you would like to, you can choose whether or not you want to read up more about it if you'd like to. But if you do, I recommend, of the 10 minutes that you spend with an artwork, try to spend at least five, at least more, 50% or more of the time, just really looking closely at the artwork, rather than anything that you any external information that you find about it. So just, be in a comfortable position when you are looking at this artwork. Feel free to move about, especially if it's, an artwork like this Netsuke that's on the screen right now. You may want to, it's three-dimensional. Right now, we just have a two-dimensional view of it. But in person, if you were able to walk around it, to sort of see it from different angles, that's something that would be great. Um, and just really explore, and if you find yourself with your mind wandering off, try to bring your mind back to the artwork. And then afterward, as always, is a great time to reflect on what you noticed, what was standing out to you, what that experience was like in comparison to other ways you experience art. So I will leave you with these instructions and encourage you to practice a looking meditation at some point, either today or another day, and encourage you to use any of the techniques that we use today, um, to help you keep focus, also to help bring calm into your life. Just sitting and focusing on your breathing for a short amount of time. It doesn't even have to be 10 minutes if you don't have 10 minutes. A couple minutes, a minute even, can help bring some calm to your life. So thank you again so much for joining me today. It was really a pleasure, and hope that you can take these techniques for calming yourself into your future. Until next time, hope you have a great day.